The visiting room was quiet except for the low hum of fluorescent lights. Ben sat at the metal table in his orange jumpsuit, wrists resting flat, eyes dull. Jail had taken the sharpness out of him but not the need to feel useful again. The door buzzed. Luke rolled in slowly, his wheelchair squeaking just a little. Aaron walked beside him, steady hand on the handle, protective without hovering. Ben froze when he saw them. "Luke," Ben said quietly. Luke didn't smile, he didn't frown either. He just looked at Ben, calm and distant, like someone who had already survived too much to be shaken easily. Aaron sat across from Ben. "You know why you're here," Aaron said, voice even. "You kidnapped Vin, you hurt a lot of people." Ben swallowed. "I know." "You're in here for life," Aaron continued. Ben nodded. "Yeah, I made my peace with that." There was a pause, then Aaron leaned forward just slightly. "But I'm not here to talk about Vin." Ben looked up confused. "I'm here to ask you something else," Aaron said. If I could get you out, would you want to come back and work with Luke again?" Ben stared at him. "What?" Luke's hands rested in his lap, small, controlled movements betraying nerves. He spoke softly. "I need a caretaker who understands routines, structure, someone who knows how to take care of all of me." Ben's breath caught. "You trust me?" Aaron answered before Luke could. "Trust isn't the word, control is, rules, supervision, no freedom, ever." Ben laughed once, bitter. "That's not much of a life." Luke tilted his head. "It's still a life." Silence filled the space. Ben looked at Luke, really looked. The wheelchair, the careful posture, the quiet strength. "If you could get me out," Ben said slowly, "and if Luke wanted me there, yeah, I'd do it. I'd do it right this time." Aaron nodded once. "Good." Ben frowned. "You said if, you really think you can get me out?" Aaron stood, placing a hand on Luke's shoulder. "I already started the paperwork." Luke met Ben's eyes for the first time. "This time," Luke said gently, "you take care of me, and I decide when you're done." Ben lowered his head. "Yes, sir." The guard called time. As Aaron pushed Luke toward the exit, Luke glanced back once. Not with fear. With control. Aaron stopped walking once they were out of the visiting room, the echo of the door still ringing behind them. "Luke," he said quietly, turning the wheelchair to face him, "why do you want Ben back?" Luke's hands tightened on the armrests. "The other caretakers weren't going well," Luke said flatly. "They didn't follow routines, they questioned decisions, and Liam is dead." Aaron's jaw tightened. "That doesn't make Ben the right answer." "It makes him the only answer," Luke replied. "That leaves Ben." Aaron exhaled slowly. "You know what Vin went through because of him." Luke didn't look away, his voice stayed calm, controlled. "That's Vin's issue, not mine." The words hung heavy between them. Aaron searched Luke's face, looking for hesitation, regret, anything. He found none. "You're choosing function over morality," Aaron said. "I'm choosing stability," Luke answered. "I need someone who understands dependency, schedules, discipline. Ben does." Aaron straightened. "And you understand what that means if this goes wrong?" Luke nodded once. "Then it's on me." A long pause. Finally Aaron said, "Very well." Luke relaxed just slightly. "But hear me clearly," Aaron added, bending down so they were eye level. "Ben does not come back as an equal, he does not make decisions, he follows your rules, one mistake, one, and he goes back, no appeals." Luke's lips pressed into a thin line. "That's exactly what I want," he said. Aaron turned the chair and began pushing again. Behind them, through reinforced glass, Ben watched. And for the first time since the bars closed around him, Ben understood something clearly. If he got out, he wouldn't be in control anymore. And Luke intended to keep it that way. The clang of the cell door echoed as Ben was escorted into the small attorney room. Carl was already there, smiling in a way that immediately set Ben on edge. "Well," Carl said, sitting back in his chair, "today is your lucky day, my friend." Ben frowned. "What?" Carl leaned forward. "Aaron is helping you out, he's getting you a job." Ben blinked. "A job?" Then it clicked. "Oh yeah, he and his kid were here a few days ago, said it was for work." Carl waved a hand. "Whatever the arrangement is, it worked. A conditional release, strict supervision, caretaker position." Ben let out a slow breath, half relief, half disbelief. Then Carl's expression hardened. "Now listen to me very carefully," he said. whatever you do, do not go anywhere near Vin's house. Ben stiffened. Why would I? Carl slid a folder across the table. He pulled out a restraining order on you. Ben stared at it. I was supposed to be in here for life. He and his family know that. Carl nodded. Didn't matter, he wanted it on record. He wanted legal distance between you and him. Ben swallowed. So even if I'm out? You don't exist to him, Carl finished. You show up anywhere near Vin, his family, or his property and you go straight back inside. No second chances. Ben leaned back slowly. So I'm free but not really. Carl stood, gathering his papers. You're free enough to work, free enough to follow rules, and only those rules. As Carl headed for the door, he paused. One more thing, he said. This job, it's not a favor, it's a leash. Ben nodded once. I figured. When the door shut, Ben sat alone, staring at the restraining order. Vin had made sure of one thing. No matter where Ben went next, there would be no path back. And whatever life Ben had left would belong to Luke now. Luke's wheelchair stopped in the middle of the room. The house was quiet, too quiet, every sound sharp and deliberate. I hope you understand something, Luke said, voice calm but firm. You should be grateful I wanted you, and you already know my routine. Ben stood straight, hands at his sides. I am. Luke studied him for a moment, then added casually, don't worry, you won't be able to see Vin, we don't get along anyway. Ben nodded. I remember. There was no bitterness in his voice, just acceptance. Luke's fingers tapped once against the armrest. If Liam hadn't passed, you'd still be in jail. Ben didn't flinch. I know. So Luke continued, eyes steady, you were my last option. A long pause. Yes, Luke said plainly. Ben let out a slow breath. Then I won't waste it. Luke leaned back slightly. Good, because this isn't a second chance, it's a function. He gestured toward a binder on the table, thick, labeled, color-coded. You follow the routine, Luke said. You don't improvise, you don't get opinions, you don't forget your place. Ben stepped forward and picked up the binder carefully. Like it mattered more than anything else in the room. Yes, he said, I understand. Luke watched him closely. Remember, Luke added, you're here because I allow it, not because you deserve it. Ben met his gaze. That's enough for me. Luke gave a small nod. Then start with tonight's schedule, he said. I don't like delays. Ben opened the binder. And just like that, the roles were set, not by force, not by forgiveness, but by necessity. Luke shifted slightly in his wheelchair. Oh, by the way, Luke said calmly, the court and your PO want you to do a drug test every week. Ben nodded without hesitation. That's for the courts. Luke's expression didn't change. Correct, but compliance reflects on me too. I understand, Ben said. I won't be a problem. Luke paused, then added evenly, good, please make it quick though. Ben looked up. I'm a mess, Luke said, voice flat, almost annoyed, and I need a change. There was no embarrassment in his tone, just expectation. Ben moved immediately. Okay, let's do it properly. He locked the brakes on the wheelchair, reached for the supplies exactly where Luke's routine said they would be. No questions, no commentary, just steps. Luke watched closely. You remember the order, Luke said. Yes, Ben replied, gloves first, pads second, no rushing. Luke nodded once. This is why I chose you, he said quietly. The others hesitated, they talked too much. Ben worked carefully, efficient and respectful, keeping his eyes where they needed to be. When I say I need something, Luke continued, I expect it done, not debated. Ben finished, cleaned up and stepped back. All set, he said, on schedule. Luke adjusted his blanket, visibly more comfortable. Good, Luke said, then we're aligned. He looked up at Ben, voice calm but unmistakably firm. Remember, this arrangement keeps you out of jail, but the routine keeps me stable. Ben nodded, then the routine comes first. Luke allowed himself a small, satisfied exhale. Exactly. And just like that, the house settled, quiet, structured, and controlled, each of them fully aware of what the other now depended on. Ben paused as he finished sealing the container. Where do I place my pee? He asked, keeping his voice neutral. Luke didn't hesitate. On my dad's desk. Ben glanced toward the office down the hall. He'll take it to your PO, Luke continued, and the courts will check it. Ben nodded once, understood. Luke watched him carefully as Ben carried it over, placing it exactly where instructed. No shortcuts, no wandering. When Ben returned, Luke was already adjusting himself in the chair, blanket straight, posture precise. "This is how it works now," Luke said. "Everything documented, everything traceable." "That's fine," Ben replied. "Clear rules make it easier." Luke met his eyes. "Good, because if something comes back wrong, it won't be a discussion." Ben swallowed. "I know." A quiet moment passed. Luke then added almost casually, "You're here because you're useful, stay that way." Ben nodded. "I will." Luke turned his chair slightly toward the hallway. "Finish the cleanup, then check the schedule. Dinner is in 40 minutes and I don't like being late." Ben moved immediately. "Yes, Luke." And in that house, precision mattered more than freedom, and both of them understood exactly why. Ben finished adjusting Luke's clothing and diapers, making sure everything was snug and secure. He stepped back and asked quietly, "Why did you pick me?" Luke's hands rested on his lap. His expression was calm but honest. "It was fun with Liam and you, I want that time back." Ben hesitated for a moment, then asked softly, "You liked us?" Luke's lips quirked in the smallest smile. "Yeah." Ben's brow furrowed. "So, it was Aaron who didn't like us." Luke nodded, a hint of resignation in his tone. "And still doesn't." Ben swallowed, keeping his voice steady. "So, even if I'm out, this is all under your rules." Luke's gaze was unwavering. "Exactly, you follow me, not him, that's how it works now." Ben nodded, understanding the weight of that. "I get it, I'll follow." Luke's small smile softened slightly. "Good, because I don't want anyone messing up the routine, not now, not ever." Ben leaned over and adjusted a blanket around Luke's legs, careful and precise. "Then I'll make sure everything stays right, just like you want." Luke relaxed back into his chair, clearly more comfortable now. "That's why I picked you, you get it, you actually get it." And in that quiet room, with the routine laid out and rules clearly set, both of them knew exactly where the power and the care truly belonged. Aaron's voice boomed through the house. "Ben, Luke, car in 10. Ben straightened, glancing at Luke. "We're going out." Luke tilted his head slightly, voice calm. "Mother, in town, she wants to go to Red Lobster." Ben rubbed the back of his neck. "Tell your dad I need 5 minutes." Luke's small smile was almost teasing. "Don't worry about it, and you've got to feed me at the restaurant." Ben raised an eyebrow. "Feed you, why?" Luke's gaze was steady. "Mom doesn't want me dirty." Ben blinked. "So I have to make sure you're clean." Luke nodded. "You can argue with them and go back to jail or just feed me. I hate it too, but that's the choice." Ben exhaled slowly, realizing exactly how strict this routine was. "Fine," he said quietly, "we do it your way." Luke leaned back in the wheelchair. "Good, I don't like delays." Ben moved efficiently, checking Luke's diaper and making sure everything was clean and comfortable, following every step of the routine. When he was done, Luke gave a small, approving nod. "Okay, now we can go." Ben smiled faintly, shaking his head. "This is going to be fun," he muttered, mostly to himself. Luke didn't respond. He just let the routine and rules dictate the rhythm of the house as it always had. And outside, the world could wait. Inside, Luke was in control. Luke spoke quietly from the back seat as the car pulled away. "I'm not the one making the decisions," he said. "My mother told the old caregiver he had to feed me. He said I could do it myself." Ben glanced at him in the mirror, and she fired him on the spot. Ben exhaled slowly, "Just like that." Luke nodded, "And my dad said, don't complain, just let someone feed you." Ben was quiet for a moment, then said, "So your mother wants an image?" "Basically," Luke replied. "Control, appearances, how things look from the outside." Ben frowned. "That's a lot." Luke added calmly, "And whatever you do, don't look her in the eyes until she says otherwise." Ben stiffened. "Seriously?" "I'm serious," Luke said. "I never look her in the eyes." Ben muttered under his breath, "Damn." Luke didn't react. "If you want this job to last, you follow that rule, no opinions, no attitude." Ben nodded slowly. "Got it, head down, feed you, follow the script." Luke leaned back against the seat. "Exactly, this isn't about comfort, it's about compliance." Ben glanced out the window as they drove, understanding settling in. This wasn't just caretaking. It was navigating power layer by layer. And tonight, the rules didn't belong to Luke at all. Luke's voice stayed low as the car moved through traffic. "Remember what I told you and Liam before?" he asked. Ben frowned slightly. "What about them?" "Those rules," Luke said, "they weren't mine, they were from my mother." Ben's eyes widened just a bit. "We thought you had everything together." Luke gave a short, humorless breath. "That's because my mother controls everything." Ben glanced back at him, the binder, the activities, the schedules. "All my mother," Luke said, "every page, every line." The silence that followed was thick. Ben finally said carefully, "Luke, you're 22. "I know," Luke replied flatly, "and I don't even have a bank account." Ben shook his head slowly. "Damn." Luke stared out the window. "She says it's for my safety, for my image, for what people expect when they look at me." "And your dad?" Ben asked. "He doesn't fight her," Luke said, "he just tells me to get through it." Ben's jaw tightened. "So all this time we thought you were the one in charge." Luke turned to him, expression unreadable. "I'm in charge of you, that's what I'm allowed." Ben absorbed that quietly. "I get it now," he said, "you weren't being strict, you were surviving." Luke didn't answer right away, then softly, "That's why I wanted you back, you already know how this works." Ben nodded. "Then I'll follow the rules, but I won't pretend they're yours." Luke looked at him for a long moment. "Just don't say that in front of her," he said. Ben lowered his gaze. "Understood." The car rolled on toward the restaurant, carrying not just routines and rules, but the weight of who really held the power. Aaron parked and came around fast, opening the back door. He crouched and began unstapping Luke's wheelchair with practiced movements. "Luke," Aaron said quietly but sharply, "you told him everything." Luke nodded. "Yes." Aaron's jaw tightened. "Then don't speak, not another word." "I know," Luke replied calmly. "She told them I'm nonverbal." Ben froze. "What the fuck?" Luke looked up at him, completely steady. "He knows everything now." Aaron finished securing the chair and straightened. "Ben, listen to me. From this point on, you follow exactly what Luke tells you. In public, he does not speak, you do not react, you do not correct anyone." Ben ran a hand through his hair. "So, everyone thinks he can't talk." Luke nodded. "Only when she's around, doctors, staff, restaurants, it's easier." Ben stared at him. "Easier for who?" Luke didn't answer. Aaron cut in. "This is not the place to unpack it. This dinner is about appearances. You feed him, you keep him clean, you keep your eyes down." Ben swallowed hard. "And if he talks?" "He won't," Aaron said flatly. Luke looked at Ben one last time before they went inside. His voice was quiet but clear. "You wanted to know why I picked you," he said. "Now you do." Then he went silent. Aaron pushed the wheelchair toward the entrance. Ben followed, heart pounding, understanding finally locking into place. This wasn't just a routine. It was a performance. And tonight, one mistake didn't just cost a job. It sent him back to jail. Pat stopped just inside the entrance, her smile sharp and perfectly practiced. Her eyes flicked to Ben, then back to Aaron. "Aaron," she said quietly, "you trust this Ben guy?" Aaron didn't hesitate. "Luke does." Pat's lips pressed into a thin line as she glanced at the wheelchair. Luke sat still, hands folded, eyes lowered, silent. "Luke is not talking right?" Pat asked. "I need him to stay quiet." Aaron nodded. "He knows the rules." Luke didn't move, didn't speak, exactly as instructed. Pat's smile returned instantly, polished and public ready. "Great, we need this donation." Ben felt it click into place then. This dinner wasn't about family. It wasn't about care. It was about optics. Pat leaned slightly toward Ben, her voice low but firm. "You feed him, you keep him clean, you don't improvise." Ben nodded once, understood. Pat straightened, already scanning the room for familiar faces. "Good, let's not ruin this." Aaron took hold of the wheelchair handles. "We're on schedule." As they moved toward the dining area, Luke's gaze flicked up just once, meeting Ben's for a fraction of a second. A silent reminder. Don't mess this up. And Ben followed, knowing that in this room, silence was worth more than truth, and obedience was the price of staying free. Aaron leaned in close to Ben, voice low and urgent. Ben, change Luke really quick, then put him next to Pat on stage. Ben didn't hesitate, got it. He moved immediately, guiding the wheelchair toward the private hallway with practiced efficiency. No talking, no wasted motion. Luke stayed completely still, eyes down, playing the role perfectly. Ben worked fast but careful, routine first, dignity intact. He checked, adjusted, cleaned, and made sure everything was exactly right. No signs, no risk. All set, Ben murmured. Luke gave the smallest nod. They were back out in moments. Ben positioned the wheelchair precisely where Aaron indicated, right beside Pat on the stage, angled just enough for visibility, blanket straight, posture neat. Pat glanced down, pleased. Good, he looks presentable. Luke said nothing. Aaron stepped back, scanning the room as donors settled in. Perfect timing. Ben retreated to the side, hands clasped, heart still racing. From where he stood, he could see Luke, silent, composed, controlled, being displayed like proof. Pat stepped to the podium, smile wide. And tonight, she said, resting a hand lightly on Luke's shoulder, we are so grateful for your continued generosity. Luke didn't move. Didn't speak. Exactly as promised. Ben watched, understanding now more than ever. This wasn't just about care, it was choreography. And Luke was playing his part flawlessly. The night finally ended, the lights dimmed, the crowd thinned, and the performance was over. Once they were back in the car, Luke broke the silence. That was great. Ben glanced at him, surprised. Why aren't you mad? Luke shrugged slightly. For not talking, I don't want to talk to those people anyway. Ben frowned. Luke, you're being exploited. Luke turned his head toward him, eyes sharp, like you did with Vin. The words hit hard. That was different, Ben said quickly. It's not a problem for me, Luke interrupted, calm, certain. I know what it is, I choose when I care. Ben was quiet for a moment, then asked softly, are you actually okay? Luke nodded, I am. He shifted in the wheelchair just slightly. And can you change me? Ben hesitated, searching Luke's face. As long as you're okay with it, he said carefully, I guess. I am, Luke replied. I'd rather it be done right. Ben pulled the car into the driveway and shut off the engine. Inside the house, everything was quiet again, no donors, no smiles, no stage. Just routine. Ben moved slowly this time, not rushed, following the steps Luke preferred. You know, Ben said quietly as he finished, you don't owe anyone silence. Luke looked at him, expression softer now. Maybe not, but silence is the only thing they can't take from me. Ben stepped back, giving him space. Then I'll follow your lead. Luke nodded once, that's all I ask. And for the first time that night, there was no audience, just two people navigating control, choice, and the strange comfort of a routine that finally felt honest. Ben found Aaron in the kitchen, rinsing out a glass like nothing had happened. Why did Pat do that to Luke? Ben said, voice tight, and you just let it happen. Aaron didn't turn around right away. Ben, Luke doesn't see his mom a lot. Ben shook his head, that doesn't make it okay. Aaron finally faced him. Luke never said he didn't like it. That's the point, Ben snapped. He didn't say anything, I am. Aaron stiffened, careful. Ben stepped closer. Don't you dare say that's the same as what I did to Vin, because it's not. Aaron's jaw clenched. I wasn't going to say anything like that. Ben swallowed hard. Luke did. Silence filled the room. Aaron rubbed his face slowly. Luke has learned to survive by not fighting her, by staying quiet. And you're letting that be the answer, Ben said. You're calling silence consent. Aaron's voice dropped. I'm calling it his choice. Ben shook his head. It's not a real choice when the cost of speaking is losing everything. Aaron didn't respond. Ben continued, quieter now. You know what it looks like when adults say he didn't complain while a kid learns to disappear. I lived that. Vin lived that. Aaron looked away. This isn't me defending myself, Ben said. This is me telling you you're watching it happen again, just cleaner, just dressed up. A long pause. Aaron finally spoke, so what do you want me to do? Ben exhaled, start by listening when he doesn't speak. Start by believing that quiet doesn't mean okay. Aaron nodded slowly, conflicted. You don't get to fix this, Ben. I know, Ben said, but I won't pretend it's fine. From the hallway, Luke watched them, silent as always. But his eyes said he heard everything. Dad. Aaron turned immediately. Yes. Luke's voice was calm, almost rehearsed. You were right, call Ben's PO. Ben stiffened. Luke. I am looking out for you, Ben said quickly. Luke's jaw tightened. Dad, wait. Aaron paused, phone halfway out. Okay. Ben stepped closer. This feels bad like before, you know that. Luke looked up at him, eyes sharp now. I get it, but you don't understand how you get your check. Ben frowned. What do you mean? I get paid tomorrow, Luke said plainly, and you get a cut. Ben blinked. That's not Luke, that's not why I. But it is how it works, Luke interrupted. Tonight, the dinners, the silence, that's what pays. Ben shook his head. But you don't want people viewing you or any person with a disability like that. Luke scoffed. Damn, Ben, you are not one of those people. Ben froze. Huh. Aaron said quietly, disability advocate. Luke rolled his eyes. I don't want to be one, I just want easy money. The words landed heavy. Ben stared at him. So you're okay with it, with all of it? Luke shrugged. I'm okay with control. I choose when I'm quiet, I choose when I cash the check. Ben exhaled slowly. And if the cost is disappearing? Luke met his gaze. That's your problem, not mine. Aaron finally spoke. So do I call the PO? Luke didn't answer right away. He looked between them, weighing something. Then softer, not yet. Aaron put the phone down. Ben nodded once, accepting the boundary even if it hurt. I'm still here to do the job, I just won't pretend it's clean. Luke leaned back in his chair. Good, I don't need clean, I need efficient. Silence settled again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one was chosen. And all three of them knew that whatever came next wouldn't be about right or wrong. It would be about who blinked first. Pat's voice rang out from across the room, sharp and gleaming with pride. Luke, you got $250 million. Luke didn't flinch, he looked at Ben instead. Half of that is yours. Ben blinked. Mine, are you serious? Luke shrugged slightly. I said it, that's your cut. Aaron frowned, holding his phone. Should I call? Luke held up a hand. That's on Ben, Dad, let him decide. Ben hesitated, looking between Luke and Aaron. I'd stay for a while, he said quietly. Luke's lips curved in the tiniest smirk. Good, you'll need it. Rules don't change because money exists. Ben let out a slow breath, realizing just how much his life had shifted. He wasn't free. Not really. But for now, at least, he had control of his paycheck and a rare choice. Luke leaned back, quiet, confident, hands folded. Now, let's see if you can handle it. Ben nodded, quietly accepting the challenge. And in that room, wealth and power collided with routines, silence, and careful obedience. It wasn't freedom, but it was survival, and for both of them that was enough for now. Aaron's voice echoed from the hallway. Uncle Mike is on his way, Luke. Luke didn't flinch, he glanced at Ben from the wheelchair. Stay quiet. Ben blinked. Even your family. Luke's gaze was firm. Other than people that work or live here, you, Ben, Liam, Vin, and Vin's family, no one else knows I can talk. Ben swallowed, leaning back slightly. How do you do crack? Luke's brow furrowed for a moment, confused. I don't know. Ben hesitated, then realized the truth. Luke's silence wasn't just obedience, it was a shield. You mean you've never tried it? Ben asked carefully. Luke shook his head. I stay in control, that's more important than anything else. Ben exhaled slowly. You're serious about this, huh? Luke nodded. I survive by rules, routines, and knowing who I trust, that's it. Aaron appeared behind them, watching silently. Ben glanced at him. And that's why you're here, Ben muttered, to keep him safe and controlled. Luke gave the smallest smirk. Exactly, don't forget your place. Ben nodded, accepting it. Outside the walls of the house the world could talk, but inside Luke's rules reigned and only a few were allowed to see beyond the silence. Luke shifted slightly in his wheelchair, eyes fixed on Ben. Put me on the mat and help me with PT, he said calmly. Ben raised an eyebrow. Why? Luke's gaze didn't waver. So he doesn't come in here and talk my ear off. Ben exhaled slowly, realizing the subtlety of the plan. Okay. He carefully transferred Luke from the wheelchair onto the mat, supporting him with precise, practiced movements. Every adjustment was about comfort and control, every step following Luke's silent instructions. Luke settled in, rolling his shoulders and stretching just enough to make the motions purposeful. Start with the exercises, he said. Ben nodded, guiding him through each move slow, careful, exact. He corrected posture gently when needed, giving Luke space while keeping him safe. Luke's eyes closed for a moment, calm and composed. See, this is better, no one talking, just focus. Ben allowed himself a small, quiet smile. I get it, you like your routines and your silence. Luke opened one eye. Exactly, don't forget it. Ben continued, moving smoothly through the PT exercises, knowing this was more than therapy. It was protection, control, and the only way Luke felt safe. And for Luke, that mat wasn't just a place for exercise, it was a shield from the world. Aaron's voice called from the doorway, Mike, he's doing PT. Mike stepped closer, arms crossed. Aaron, I know Luke has a physical disability, but he needs a break sometimes. Aaron nodded without looking at Luke. Ben, take a break. Ben hesitated for a moment, glancing at Luke. Mike crouched down near the mat. Luke, what's up? Ben quickly pulled Aaron aside, voice low. Luke doesn't like him. Aaron exhaled slowly, nodding. I know, but remember, we're pretending Luke can't speak. So low-key, you and I act like we don't know, keep it quiet. Ben frowned slightly, so I just let him talk at him. Aaron shook his head. No, you stay out of it, we handle it, Luke's in control, and if he says nothing, Mike thinks he's nonverbal, that's the rule. Ben let out a soft sigh, glancing at Luke. His eyes were fixed on the ceiling, calm, silent, but aware. Aaron clapped Ben lightly on the shoulder. Go on, take your break, watch, don't interfere, let him enforce the routine. Ben nodded, stepping back. Luke's eyes flicked toward him for a fraction of a second, a silent warning. Mike crouched closer to Luke, clearly unaware of the invisible line Ben had just stepped back from. Luke remained perfectly still, hands folded, eyes lowered, silent but fully aware. Ben settled into the corner, arms crossed, knowing that this was more than PT or family visits. This was a test of control. And Luke, he was winning without saying a word. Mike leaned down near Luke, holding a small device. I found something Luke can use to speak. Aaron shook his head. Pat and I tried that on him in the past, didn't work. Before Mike could respond, Pat's voice called from the hallway. Mike, Aaron, come please. The two of them left the room, leaving Luke and Ben alone. Ben stepped closer, lowering his voice. Luke, you good? Luke nodded slightly, voice low and almost a whisper. Yes. Ben smiled faintly, then glanced at the mat. 5 more minutes of PT, then back in your chair. Luke responded with 2 thumbs up. Ben guided him through the final exercises carefully, keeping everything precise, no wasted motion, no rushed steps. Every movement respected Luke's comfort while following the routine. When the final stretch was complete, Ben helped Luke back into his wheelchair. Luke settled in smoothly, blanket adjusted, posture perfect. Ben stepped back, glancing at him with a quiet smile. All done, good job. Luke's small grin was subtle but satisfied. Thanks, you follow rules well. Ben chuckled softly, someone has to. And in that room, with the devices ignored and the family out of earshot, the routine and Luke's quiet control held steady, exactly as it should. Mike came back into the room holding the small device. He crouched near Luke, giving a quick smile. Luke, sorry, got to run, he said quickly, but next time I'll work with you on this device. Luke didn't respond verbally. He stayed still, hands folded on his lap, eyes steady. Aaron stepped forward, clapping Mike lightly on the shoulder. Mike, let's go, bro. Mike nodded and started toward the door, glancing back at Luke with a small wave. Once the door closed behind them, Ben leaned down toward Luke. All good. Luke's eyes flicked up at him, a small smirk forming. Yes, they leave, I stay quiet, rules followed. Ben nodded. 5 more minutes and we're back to the chair, right? Luke gave him a subtle thumbs up, eyes sharp. Exactly. Ben guided him carefully through the remaining exercises, precise and quiet, every step following Luke's unspoken instructions. By the time Luke was settled back in his wheelchair, blanket straight, posture perfect, the room was silent except for the soft hum of the lights. Ben stepped back, watching him. You really don't let anyone in, huh? Luke's small grin said it all. Control wasn't given, it was taken, and tonight he still held it. Luke shifted slightly in his wheelchair, settling back with a small, satisfied sigh. It doesn't bother me, he said softly. I like my own peace. Ben tilted his head a little concerned. That's kind of sad, don't you think? Luke shook his head calm and confident. No, I love it. Ben glanced at him then gestured gently. All right, you need to change your diaper. Luke didn't protest, but he gave a small shrug. I just feel good about myself because I don't have to worry about anyone else. Ben nodded slowly, understanding. Yeah, I get that, you've built your own space, your rules. Luke's gaze softened just slightly. Exactly, and I like it when it stays that way. Ben moved carefully, guiding Luke through the change. Every movement was deliberate, gentle, precise, respectful. Luke's posture stayed relaxed, but his control over the situation was clear. He chose who touched him when and how. When it was finished, Luke leaned back in the wheelchair, blanket straightened, a small smirk on his lips. I'm good now, he said, back to my piece. Ben stepped back, quietly smiling to himself. All right, peace it is. And in that quiet moment, Luke's world felt exactly how he wanted it. Ordered, controlled, and completely his own, with Ben there to make sure the rules were always followed. Ben carefully picked up a soft, snug onesie and held it in front of Luke. Luke gave a small shrug. I just got used to it, he said quietly as Ben began putting it on. It's all I know. Ben nodded slowly, pulling the fabric gently over Luke's arms and torso, making sure it fit comfortably. Yeah, I can see that, but it's okay, it works for you. Luke didn't say anything else, just settled into the onesie, letting Ben finish the adjustments. The fabric felt secure, familiar, like a small shield from the rest of the world. When Ben stepped back, Luke looked at him, expression calm but honest. I feel right like this, don't have to think about anyone else, just me. Ben smiled softly. That's what I'm here for, to keep it that way. Luke gave a faint nod, leaning back in his wheelchair, blanket tucked around him. Good, that's all I want. Ben glanced at him, quietly reflecting. For Luke, the routine, the clothing, even the silence, it wasn't infantilizing. It was control, security, peace. And Ben knew his role wasn't just to care, it was to respect that peace exactly as Luke wanted it. Aaron came into the room carrying a small container. I made your tube feed formula, he said, setting it down carefully. Luke let out a small, frustrated sigh. I just hate this, he muttered, eyes fixed on the floor. Aaron's voice stayed calm but firm. Then eat more. Ben stepped closer, gently placing a hand on Luke's shoulder. I can help with that, he said softly. Luke glanced at him, expression neutral but relieved. You don't make it worse. Ben shook his head. Nope, just here to make it easier. Aaron handed Ben the container and Ben prepared everything with quiet precision. No rush, no fuss, just the routine they followed countless times. As he guided Luke through the process, adjusting tubes and ensuring comfort, Luke's tension slowly eased. His small sighs of annoyance faded into a resigned calm. When it was done, Ben wiped Luke gently and tucked him comfortably back in his wheelchair. All set, he said. Luke gave a faint nod. Thanks, I guess. Ben smiled softly. That's okay, you don't have to like it, just trust me to make it manageable. Luke leaned back, the frustration in his posture replaced with quiet acceptance. In this small, controlled routine, he found his peace, and Ben silently understood exactly why that mattered so much. Ben glanced at Aaron, concern furrowing his brow. So, you want me here to get Luke fatter? Aaron didn't flinch. Luke wanted you, but basically yeah. Ben ran a hand through his hair. Luke has an ED, an eating disorder. Aaron nodded slowly. It's more common in women, sure, but guys can have it too. Ben's gaze dropped to the floor. When I saw him after 2 years, he doesn't look healthy at all. That's why I chose you, Aaron said quietly. You helped David gain weight, you helped Vin, you know how to do it safely. Ben shook his head, uneasy. I thought Luke did that on his own and you don't like me. Aaron met his eyes. You're right on both counts, but this isn't about that. I just want you to help my son gain weight. Ben exhaled slowly. So, it's about health, not control. Aaron's jaw tightened slightly. Partially, mostly health, but control helps keep him safe too, and you know the routines. Ben nodded slowly, realizing the full weight of the role he'd been handed. It wasn't just feeding Luke. It wasn't just diapers or routines. It was care, management, and rebuilding a fragile body safely. And Luke trusts you, Aaron added softer, that's why this works. Ben let the words sink in, then I'll do it carefully step by step. Aaron gave a small nod, a hint of relief in his expression. Exactly, that's all I ask. Ben stood by the counter, glancing at the small digital pump. The feeding tube ran steadily, delivering formula throughout the day, only pausing when Luke ate by mouth. Luke, Ben said firmly, leaning slightly toward him, if you don't eat, there's no time for fun later. Aaron stood nearby, nodding. Luke listened to Ben. Luke's eyes narrowed slightly, voice low and defiant. You took all of my stuff. Ben raised an eyebrow, voice steady. Yeah, that's part of the routine now, no distractions, you focus on eating first. Aaron stepped in, reinforcing the rules. Good, now eat. Luke's hands rested in his lap. He let out a small sigh but didn't argue further. He knew this wasn't optional, not with Ben watching, not with Aaron supporting the structure. Ben carefully guided him to the small tray, encouraging small bites by mouth while the tube fed the rest. He kept it calm, gentle, and precise, adjusting everything for comfort, making sure Luke wasn't rushed but also stayed on task. Luke finally began to eat, eyes focused ahead, expression tight but compliant. Ben nodded quietly, that's it, keep going step by step. Aaron smiled faintly from the side, see, this works when you follow the rules. Luke muttered under his breath almost to himself, I hate it but I'll do it. Ben glanced at him, voice soft now, I know, but this is about keeping you strong, making sure you stay healthy. Luke didn't respond, just continued eating, letting the routine control the room. And for both of them, that quiet compliance, forced or chosen, was exactly the kind of structure they needed. Pat's voice came from the doorway, Ben, thank you. Ben shook his head slightly, it takes time. Luke suddenly shifted in his wheelchair, voice low but urgent, I need to go to the bathroom. Ben frowned, stepping closer, you're in a diaper and I just changed you. Luke's hands clenched briefly, subtle tension in his posture. Ben realized immediately Luke was trying to push boundaries. He could tell from the way Luke's stomach tensed, the small gag reflex starting. He wasn't going to let Luke out of his sight. Luke, Ben said gently but firmly, I see what you're doing. We're going to handle this together, but you stay right here. Luke's eyes flicked toward him, almost challenging. Ben crouched slightly, keeping his voice calm. I know you feel sick, I'm not leaving, we'll take care of it safely, you don't need to throw up where it's messy. Luke hesitated, then let out a small sigh, curling his fingers around the blanket. He trusted Ben enough not to try anything risky while Ben watched. Ben stayed close, monitoring him, guiding his breathing and making sure Luke didn't panic or overreact. You're okay, I've got you. Slowly, Luke's body relaxed, realizing that Ben wasn't just enforcing rules, he was protecting him too. Pat glanced back from the doorway, everything all right? Ben nodded, keeping his attention fully on Luke. Yeah, he's fine, just needed a minute. Luke gave a faint, almost imperceptible nod, still silent but aware Ben was in control but not in a way that took his peace. And in that room, the quiet vigilance of care kept the routine and Luke's fragile balance intact. Luke's voice was quiet but tense, Ben, who told you? Ben knelt slightly to be level with him, voice calm. I saw your body and your parents confirmed my suspicions. Luke's eyes narrowed, a flicker of frustration in his gaze. I'm not a girl. Ben shook his head gently. Guys have this too, it's not about being a girl, it's about your health, your balance. Luke looked down at his hands, fingers fidgeting. I need it to end. Ben placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. I know, and I'll help you with it, okay? Luke glanced up at him, a mix of relief and apprehension. Okay. Ben kept his voice low and steady. We'll do this slowly, step by step, you're not alone and you're not in trouble, I just want to help. Luke exhaled, letting the tension in his shoulders ease slightly. Thanks, I trust you. Ben gave a faint smile. Good, that's all we need, one step at a time. And in that quiet moment, Luke felt a little control return, not over the world but over what mattered most, his care, his routine, and the trust he could place in Ben. Luke's eyes were sharp, almost challenging, but there was a hint of hurt in them. You're judging me, he said quietly, like my parents with my issues around food. Ben shook his head gently, voice soft but firm. No, we're not. Luke's shoulders tensed. I am. Ben crouched down slightly, keeping his tone calm. Luke, I'm here to help you, not to judge. I know it's hard, I know you're frustrated, but I'm not them. I'm not here to punish you or make you feel bad about yourself. Luke looked away for a moment, jaw tight, fingers curling around the blanket. It feels the same. Ben reached out, lightly resting a hand on Luke's arm. I get it, I really do, but all of this, it's about making you strong, safe, and healthy, not about control over you, not about judging, promise. Luke hesitated, then gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Okay, I trust you. Ben exhaled slowly. Good, that's all I need. We'll do this together, step by step, no judgment, just care. Luke's posture relaxed slightly, and for the first time in a long while, he let himself believe that someone could be on his side without trying to control him. Ben smiled faintly, keeping his hand gently on Luke's arm. Now, let's finish the routine. We'll make sure you're comfortable and everything's done right. Luke gave a small approving nod. Okay. And in that quiet moment, care and trust outweighed fear, just a little, but enough to keep their routine and their fragile peace intact. Luke's voice was low, hesitant. I lied before. Ben tilted his head slightly. About. Luke's eyes stayed on the floor. I don't really care about having friends. Ben nodded slowly, understanding. You don't want them to know that you have an ED, huh? Luke's gaze flicked up for a brief moment. Yes. Ben stayed calm, his tone soft. It's okay, Luke, you don't have to care what anyone else thinks. You're not lying to me, you're just protecting yourself. Luke let out a small sigh, shoulders relaxing slightly. I just don't want anyone to see me weak or messed up. You're not weak, Ben said gently. You just have rules and routines that keep you safe. That's not weakness, that's smart. Luke looked at him for a moment, a faint glimmer of relief in his eyes. So, it's okay that I lie about friends. Ben gave a small smile. It's okay, you decide what you share and with whom, that's your choice, not theirs. Luke leaned back in his wheelchair, quiet, the tension easing a little. For the first time in a while, he felt that someone understood his silence and his choices, without judgment. Ben glanced at him softly. Now let's finish the routine, we'll make sure you're comfy and everything's done right. Luke nodded faintly. Okay. And in that quiet moment, the balance between care and control stayed intact, with trust and Luke's peace holding steady. Ben set the small plate down gently. Luke, just some chicken and some rice, that's it. Luke stared at it. His breathing changed first, then his hands, then his whole posture tightened like a wire pulled too far. I can't, Luke said quickly, that's too much. It's not, Ben replied softly, it's small. Luke's chest started rising faster. It feels big, his voice cracked. I can't. He started to panic, fingers digging into the blanket, eyes unfocused. Ben immediately crouched down in front of him. Okay, it's fine, look at me. Luke shook his head. Hey, Ben said gently, it's okay, we're not forcing anything, breathe first, food second. Luke's breaths were shallow. Ben lowered his voice, in for 4, hold out for 4, I'm right here. Slowly, very slowly, Luke followed. The panic didn't disappear instantly, but it stopped climbing. No one's judging you, Ben continued. Not me, not right now, this is just food, not a test. Luke's eyes watered, slightly embarrassed. I hate this. I know, Ben said, but freaking out doesn't make you weak, it means it's hard. Luke swallowed. Ben slid the plate slightly farther away, not gone, just less threatening. We don't have to win the whole battle tonight, one bite is enough, or none, but we stay calm. Luke's breathing steadied. After a long moment he whispered, don't leave. I'm not, Ben said. The room grew quiet again. No stage. No donors. No parents pushing. Just a plate of food, a shaking hand, and someone choosing to stay instead of control. And for tonight, that was enough. If you or someone you know is struggling with food issues or an eating disorder, you are not alone. You can call 888-487-9235 for support and guidance. Reaching out is not weakness, it's a strong first step toward getting help. There are people trained to listen, support you, and connect you with resources. If you are in immediate danger or in crisis, please call 911 US or your local emergency number. You deserve support.